Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. She's the host of the program, and this is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Barb, a real estate sale is a business and a legal transaction that must be in writing. I know that a real estate license doesn't mean that you've been educated on contracts or negotiating, and those contracts can be very intimidating for some folks. What are some contractual provisions that home sellers ought to be watching out for and that you know about?
Yeah, I think the training is very weak in this area. Even real estate agents probably don't fully understand every little section of the contract. It's not that it's hard to read, it's just that they don't pay attention to it, right? So, but I kind of learned this more and more as the years went on because I had people that were asking me questions about it, customers basically that said, "Hey, what's that mean? Well, we shouldn't be checking this box." So, agents are naturally not wired to be high detail people, and yet most of the population is. So, I think these contracts people really need to pay attention to it. And what's interesting is in the state, there's no obligation for the agent to explain the contract. They kind of leave it on the consumer's lap to figure out what the contract means and to understand what they're signing. And I like to go over the whole contract with them. I'll either do it in person or do it on video, just so they're fully aware of what they're signing, because they don't do this every day. Most either buyer or seller, it's a 20-page contract, and they have to understand what's in there and what it means because they don't like surprises. And the state of Colorado is very much a buyer-friendly state. What I mean by that is it's on the buyer to do their own due diligence to make sure that the home would work for them in all aspects, in its condition, whether or not they have clear title, whether or not the repairs, whether or not it's appraised, the source of water, all aspects of the house. It's on the buyer. So the buyer has a whole bunch of opportunities to bail out of the contract if they're not satisfied. And I'll go so far as to say the way the contracts are structured in the state of Colorado, a buyer, if you're not properly protected by your agent, could walk away at the closing table and get their earnest money back. Imagine you'd moved out of your house, Richard, thinking you have a sale and the buyer walks.
Unbelievable.
It,
Unbelievable. And yet that happens.
it does happen, and it's the worst day ever when that happens. So, all licensed agents must use the same state form. It's a state written contract to buy and sell. It's supposed to be designed to protect the consumers. In my view, it is written by lawyers, but it really protects the buyer more than the seller. Once a seller commits to a contract, there's really there's no way for them to get out of it. If they do, there could be, legal penalties if they do. Whereas if the buyer gets out of it, they get their earnest money back, they go find another house, right? So that's why it's really critical to hire somebody that understands the contract and explains it to you so you know. Buyers have at least 8 different ways to get out of the contract. And then sellers often think that once they have a contract, it's a done deal and we're going to the finish line, but not so much. And the problem is sellers are packing, they're planning their move while the buyers are doing their due diligence. So it's almost like an intent to buy contract. The buyers are going to buy if they get approved for their loan, if they like their loan, if they're okay with their title and the title is clear, if they're okay with the survey, if they make their contract contingent on a survey, if they like the rules around the HOA, if the house passes the inspection, if the house passes the appraisal, and the buyer doesn't change their mind. So it's a big if on all of those. And generally the inspection is probably the one area where a majority of contracts fail. There are minimum 33 different systems that come under scrutiny. And there are 33 different systems that come under scrutiny when a home inspection takes place. And some of these are pretty much unexpected by sellers. Probably the most common things that we see that cause the sellers to have to repair, replace items are sewer lines, septic lines, the brand of the electrical panel, the potability or quality of the water if they have a well. Roofs are very, very common. Plumbing, mold. Mold isn't that common there, but if it is there, there's a expensive process you have to go through. And it does say in the contract that the home is sold as is, where is, with all its faults. But it never really works out that way, or rarely works out that way, let me say. So, the contracts often, these agents will try, especially if they're up against competition with another buyer, they'll try to write something in the contract that gives the seller a warm fuzzy, like, oh, we're going to limit our request for inspection just to health, safety, plumbing, electrical, and roofing, which is pretty much all of it. Or, they ask for stuff, which is ridiculous. We want a new furnace just because the existing furnace or water heaters are old. Or we want new windows because they're old. Or, they do stuff like that. And it's weird. Other states are quite different. Like in the state of Texas, you basically have 10 days to perform or not, at which point after your earnest money is 100% non-refundable. That is not the case here in Colorado. And if you don't hire an agent that really understands these contracts, the earnest money could be refundable at closing, even though now, you think you're going to closing as a seller, you're getting all packed up, the house no longer looks show ready, right? And you've scheduled your mover and you've got all these stars aligning, you got your destination picked up, and then the buyer walks away, right? So that could be a real nightmare. Some other problems that come up are for if a buyer's getting government loans, like a VA or an FHA type financing. In those cases, the house condition has to pass those standards. Now, it's not really that strict. A lot of people think, oh my God, my house will never pass VA or FHA. But some of the things that they will ask to be repaired are peeling paint on the peeling paint on the outside of the home, missing outlet covers, broken windows, just general safety tips like trip hazards, window wells that an animal or a kid could fall into, fences falling down, that kind of stuff. What the contract doesn't say is who fixes it, right? And we've had cases where the buyer fixes it so they can get their VA financing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then at the very last minute, there's a final walkthrough just prior to closing. That usually freaks sellers out. Like, why are they doing that? It's in the contract that they're doing that. Theoretically, it's to confirm that whatever agreed upon inspection repairs are done and the home is as expected. They didn't, tear out walls or do something crazy, right? But many agents use this as an opportunity to leverage, and we're not going to close unless we get it our way. I've seen that too many times, and it's really frustrating for home sellers. So those are some of the things that you have to be aware of when you're going through a traditional sales process. It's not nearly as strict when you use the cash offer program, because they pretty much do their inspection and they're like, all right, we're going to take this much off for whatever we think the repairs are going to be, and we're done. We're done. And you know for sure you're getting to the finish line. Either way, we can help you. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. And we can sit down and give you an idea what your home will sell for. We'll show up with multiple offers, something that most agents don't do. And we'll be able to give you a really good idea on how much you'll put in your pocket when it sells. So just go to barbhasthebuyers.com or give us a call at 719-301-3900. Richard?
Barb, we're talking about the real estate contracts and provisions that can be inserted into a contract to protect sellers. We know that buyers have plenty of ways to get out of a contract, but what are some contract provisions that can actually help the sellers? Tell us about them.
Well, a sale contingency is something that may not help the seller unless they are using it when they're buying their next home, because most people want to have their destination lined up when they're selling their home, right? Maybe they're going to move house to house from this house to the next. And that can work out fine, especially if you make an offer on your next home after you pass the inspection process of this home. that would give your seller on the other end a pretty good warm fuzzy that we're going to get to the finish line. There are an awful lot of buyers out there that have a house to sell. And if you're receiving an offer like that on a buyer that has a house to sell, how do you know you're protected, right? If somebody makes an offer and says, hey, Mr. Seller, will you wait for me to sell my home? I want to buy your home. Here's my really good offer, except I need to sell my home, but it's not even on the market yet. For most home sellers, they're kind of like, it's not enough. There's too much uncertainty there to know it's going to go through. And I don't care what kind of sales pitch you get from agents, because I do get them. Let me tell you, oh, don't worry, it'll sell fast. I'm just so sure of it. We're going to price it right. And then when you watch what they do, if the seller does accept that offer, they don't price it right. They don't go on the market when they're supposed to, and they reject decent offers that come in. So it can be really frustrating to accept a sale contingency, but there are solutions for that. We actually have cash buyers that will buy their home so they could buy your home without a sale contingency. That's huge. Nobody else offers that. But there's a way to work it out. Plus, we make sure we keep marketing that home until your deal is firm. And the reason for that is if you tell the world that, oh, the seller accepted a sale contingency, our local MLS has this really dumb criteria that you're supposed to put the house in that says the seller accepted a sale contingency, and everybody's supposed to know that, they've done that. But if you have a buyer that doesn't have a house to sell, you could kick them off. Well, it doesn't show up online that way. All the big box websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, and all that tell the world that the home is not available. So I don't work it that way. So you need to have somebody that really knows how to deal with it. Inspections is another thing. We just worked one deal where basically the buyer couldn't go any higher in price. So the seller's like, all right, fine, I'll accept it, but it's truly going to be as is. And it's working out that way, which is really good. They did an inspection, they found a few issues, but they're like, we're good, we're going to closing, and everything's working fine on that. Earnest money deposit. So the way the state contracts are written, they are fully refundable, even at the finish line. We have provisions we can put in our contract to make sure that the seller is protected if they have gone to the expense of moving out. And then we've got this new paragraph that is how the buyer's agent gets paid. It's paragraph 29. It says X percentage is either paid by the seller or paid by the buyer or paid by a negotiation between the agents. That is now negotiable, okay? And what I'm seeing is a lot of the agents are calling and going, well, how much commission is offered? So they're doing this before they're showing the house, because maybe they've already written an agreement saying, well, I get 3%, and the buyer doesn't want to pay their fee. So therefore, I won't even show your house because they're not going to pay my fee. And it's insane. It's putting your income in between what the buyer wants. And everything is negotiable. You should be able to work it out. You should be able to make a good enough offer. And this is what I tell the agents. Hey, you can get as much as you want to make. It really depends on the merits of your offer. So if you have an agreement with your buyer to pay him 3%, make the offer good enough to motivate the seller to want to pay that. But they won't do it. They won't even show the house if they don't have confirmation that they're going to make that money, which is insane. If you are thinking of making a move, we can take care of you on all these contract provisions. Give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. We have over 27,970 buyers in waiting just on our little website, over 700 buyers that are a high match for any home, plus our cash buyers. So call us at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. She's the host of the program, and if you are thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about why do business with one agent over another one. Plus, we'll talk about Barb's hot new listings. You don't want to miss any of that.